Ever hear about a pilot so skilled he could land the plane with a busted engine right in the heart of enemy territory?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's the story we're diving into today. The tale of Lieutenant Colonel Francis Gabby Gabreski and his P-47 Thunderbolt misfire.
Okay, so what's immediately striking is the date, July 20th, 1944.
Yeah,
Not just any day in World War II, the Allies are pushing forward, but the Luftwaffe is still a pretty formidable force.
so the stakes are high.
Oh, yeah.
And here's Gabby, forced to put down his plane, misfire, in Germany.
Wow.
It's a moment that could have ended his career, but as you'll see, it becomes like a defining chapter in his story. But to really understand the weight of this event, we need to rewind a bit.
Okay.
Who was this guy, and what made him such a legendary pilot?
Well, for starters, he ends the war as the top-scoring American ace in the European theater.
Oh, yeah.
That's 28 aerial victories.
28 victories. Wow, that's not just luck, right? What set him apart?
No. He was known for his aggressive style, always pushing the limits, which was actually a bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it made him incredibly effective, especially against the German Focke-Wulf 190s.
Yeah,
But it also put him in some pretty hairy situations.
I can imagine. So where did this aggressive approach come from? Was it just natural talent? Or was there something more to it?
It's interesting. Our sources point to his Polish heritage as a potential influence. He grew up hearing these stories of Polish aviators battling against the odds, and it seems those stories really resonated with him.
That's fascinating. So this kid from Pennsylvania, inspired by these tales of daring, ends up joining the U.S. Army Air Corps in 1940. Did his aggressive style fit in with the military's approach to air combat?
It's worth noting that Gabby didn't just fly solo.
Okay.
He was part of the 56th Fighter Group, famously nicknamed Zemke's Wolfpack after their commander, Colonel Hubert Zemke.
Gabby's Wolfpack. I love that name. What made them so special?
Well, they were renowned for their innovative tactics, like the high-speed boom and zoom attack. Basically, they'd dive on enemy formations from a high altitude, unleash like a concentrated burst of fire, and then use the P-47's powerful engine to climb back up for another pass.
So it's pretty effective. Do you think that kind of aggressive, coordinated approach might have encouraged or even amplified Gabby's natural instincts?
Absolutely. The 56th was all about pushing the limits, taking calculated risks, and maximizing the strengths of the P-47. It was the perfect environment for a pilot like Gabreski to thrive.
And this is where misfire comes into the picture. Now, I've always been curious about the names pilots chose for their planes.
Yeah.
It seems like there's always a story behind them. What's the deal with misfire?
Well, the sources are a bit vague, but they offer some intriguing possibilities. On one hand, it could be a playful nod to the inherent danger of their missions.
Okay.
Weapons sometimes jam, they misfire. It's a reminder of the ever-present risk they face.
Kind of a dark humor thing almost.
Right.
But I feel like there's got to be more to it than that.
Right. There's also the theory that it might have been a more personal tribute, maybe a reference to a sweetheart back home.
Okay.
Perhaps someone named Miss something.
Right.
It adds a layer of humanity to the whole story.
It really does. It's a reminder that these guys weren't just flying machines. They were carrying their lives, their loves, and their fears with them into battle.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly skilled pilot, Gabby Gabreski, flying misfire as part of this elite, aggressive fighter group.
Yeah.
And they're racking up victories, contributing to Allied air dominance. It seems like everything's going their way. But then comes July 20th, 1944, and that forced landing in Germany. What exactly happened? So we left off with Gabby facing this incredibly tense situation, forced to land misfire in enemy territory. What led to that moment?
Well, it seems like, it was a mechanical failure, something that that could happen to even the most, well-maintained aircraft.
Right.
War is unpredictable. And even with all the skill in the world, sometimes fate just deals you a bad hand.
I bet that must have been like a heart-stopping experience, going from dominating the skies to suddenly being grounded, vulnerable behind enemy lines.
Oh, absolutely. It's a stark contrast to, the high-flying victories we were discussing earlier.
Right.
And this crash landing, it really highlights the fragility of life in wartime. One minute you're an ace pilot, racking up victories, and the next you're a prisoner of war.
It makes you wonder what went through Gabby's mind in those moments. Did he ever talk about that experience?
There are accounts of him describing the feeling of utter helplessness as misfire, lost altitude, knowing that capture was almost inevitable.
Right.
And yet, even in that, desperate situation, he managed to keep a cool head, brought the plane down with minimal damage,
Yeah.
which speaks volumes about his skill and composure under pressure.
It's amazing how even in those terrifying moments, his training and instincts kicked in. So he's captured, becomes a prisoner of war. What happened next?
He spent the rest of the war in a POW camp. But even in captivity, his spirit didn't break. There are stories of him organizing escape attempts, boosting morale amongst his fellow prisoners, and even using his knowledge of German to gather intelligence.
He sounds like a real leader,
Yeah.
even when stripped of his rank and freedom.
Exactly. And that resilience, that unwavering determination is something that really shines through in all the accounts of his life. Even after the war, he continued to serve, flew jets in Korea, and eventually commanded fighter wings.
It's almost like that forced landing, that moment of defeat, fueled his determination even further.
That's a fascinating observation. It's as if that experience solidified his commitment to service, to pushing himself beyond his limits. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to find strength in the face of adversity.
So we've talked about Gabby's incredible skill, his aggressive style, his resilience, and his leadership.
Right.
But let's not forget about Misfire.
Yeah.
How do you think she fits into his overall legacy?
I think Misfire becomes more than just a plane in this story. She becomes a symbol of both Gabby's triumphs and his setbacks, representing the highs and lows of his wartime journey.
I like that. The idea of her embodying both the victories and the vulnerabilities of war.
And it's interesting to think about her name, Misfire, in this context. On one hand, it speaks to the inherent danger of their missions, the possibility of things going wrong. But on the other hand, it also hints at something more personal, a connection to someone or something beyond the battlefield.
It's almost like she represents both the destructive power of war and the enduring human spirit that persists even in the darkest of times.
Exactly. And that duality, that interplay of opposing forces is what makes this story so compelling.
It's a reminder that even amidst the chaos and violence, there are these glimmers of humanity, these stories of courage, resilience, and connection that shine through.
Yep.
Well said. So we've explored Gabby's journey, the significance of Misfire, and the broader context of the war. But there's one element we haven't fully addressed: the mystery surrounding Misfire's name. Do we have any more clues to work with? We've spent this deep dive exploring Gabby Gabreski's journey and the significance of Misfire in his story, but there's still that lingering question about her name. What else can we uncover about its meaning?
It's a puzzle with a few pieces missing, which makes it, all the more intriguing. We know the likely possibilities, a reference to weapon malfunctions, or perhaps a tribute to someone special.
Yeah.
But without concrete evidence, we're left to kind of explore the implications of both.
And I think those implications are really powerful, even without a definitive answer.
Absolutely. If it's a nod to weapons malfunctioning, missing fire, it highlights the constant presence of danger, the ever-present possibility of failure. It's a sobering reminder that even the best pilots, the most advanced machines, were not immune to the unpredictable nature of war.
It adds a layer of tension to the whole story, doesn't it? Knowing that at any moment something could go wrong, even for someone as skilled as Gabby.
Exactly. But then there's the other possibility, the personal connection.
Right.
If Misfire was named after a sweetheart, a wife, a family member, it adds a whole new dimension to the story.
Yeah.
It suggests that even amidst the chaos and violence, there was still room for love, for hope, for something beyond the battlefield.
It humanizes Gabby even further, doesn't it? It shows that he wasn't just a fearless warrior, but also a man with deep personal connections, someone who carried those bonds with him into the most dangerous of situations.
And it makes you think about the countless other pilots, the countless other misfires out there, each with their own stories, their own motivations, their own loved ones waiting for them back home.
It's a reminder that history is made up of individuals, each with their own complex lives and emotions. It's not just about battles and strategies, but also about the human stories that unfold within those larger events.
And I think that's what makes this deep dive so compelling. We've gone beyond the surface level, beyond the statistics and the facts, to explore the human element at the heart of this story.
We've explored Gabby's skill, his resilience, his leadership, and the mysteries surrounding Misfire. But ultimately, it's the unanswered questions, the lingering mysteries that leave us wanting to learn more, to dig deeper, to connect with the past on a personal level.
And that's the beauty of history. It's a constant process of discovery, of piecing together fragments of information, of interpreting evidence and drawing our own conclusions.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the story of Gabby
Firing at me.
Gabreski and Misfire,
Enemy
we
down.
encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep seeking out those human stories that make history come alive.
Because it's in those stories, those personal connections, that we find the true meaning and significance of the past.